Mr. Carter, you have been found guilty on all counts. You are hereby sentenced to 25 years in federal prison. The words echoed in my ears, hollow and unreal. My vision tunneled, the gavel's sharp crack snapping me back to reality. My lawyer, a useless, sweat-drenched mess, whispered something about appeals, but I barely heard him. My eyes were locked on her. My wife, Emily, seated in the front row, her face a perfect mask of grief. Oscar-winning, believable to anyone who didn't know better. But I knew the truth, and it burned like acid in my gut. She did this. Not just the affair. Not just the lies. Emily had orchestrated my downfall, planted the evidence, woven a perfect web of deceit. And now, here I was, shackled and broken, while she sat there draped in black, feigning devastation for the cameras. As they hauled me away, I forced myself to look at her one last time, just in time to catch it, the tiniest smirk, a dagger to the heart. And that's when I knew. I wasn't going to survive in here. I was going to get out. And when I did, she would pay. Started with a phone call. A simple, seemingly innocent call that changed everything. Mr. Carter? The voice on the other end was crisp, professional. This is Detective Reynolds with the Financial Crimes Unit. We need you to come in for some routine questioning. My stomach twisted. Financial crimes? I ran a private investment firm, managing high-stakes portfolios for wealthy clients. I was meticulous, borderline obsessive with compliance. There was no way I had done anything illegal. Is there a problem? I asked, already running through a mental checklist of anything that might have raised a red flag. I'm sure it's nothing, Reynolds replied. Just a few discrepancies we need to clarify. It's standard procedure. Standard procedure. That's what I kept telling myself as I pulled up to the precinct an hour later. I had no idea that I was walking straight into a trap. Reynolds led me into a dimly lit interrogation room. No greetings, no small talk. Just a folder slapped onto the metal table between us. Mr. Carter, are you familiar with these transactions? He flipped the folder open, revealing a set of bank statements, my bank statements. And there, circled in red, were transfers I had never seen before. Millions of dollars wired to offshore accounts. Shell companies I'd never heard of. A pattern of fraud so blatant it was almost insulting. What the hell is this? I demanded. Reynolds leaned back in his chair. That's what we're trying to figure out. You see, your firm has been moving large sums of money to accounts linked to known criminal enterprises. That's not a coincidence. I shook my head. That's impossible. I didn't authorize any of this. Reynolds sighed like he'd heard this 100 times before. Look, Mr. Carter, we have evidence. Your credentials were used. Your signatures are on the documents. The SEC has been investigating for months, and now the feds are involved. If you're expecting me to believe you had no idea. I stood up, my pulse pounding. I want a lawyer. Reynolds smirked. Of course you do. And that's when the door opened. Emily stepped inside. My wife. My beautiful, devoted wife. She looked shaken, her eyes rimmed with red. But behind that facade of concern, I caught something else. Something colder. Resignation. Betrayal. She reached for my hand, and when I didn't take it, she let out a soft sigh. Neek, I tried to warn you. Warn me? I opened my mouth to respond, but then Reynolds slid another paper across the table. A signed statement. Her signed statement. It was dated 3 weeks ago. Emily Carter had turned me in. I stared at the document in front of me, my mind unable to process what I was seeing. My wife's signature, Emily Carter, was neatly scrawled at the bottom of a witness statement, dated 3 weeks prior. She turned you in, Detective Reynolds said, almost amused. Tough break. I swallowed hard, my throat dry as sandpaper. That's impossible. Reynolds slid another piece of paper toward me, a transcript from a recorded statement. I love my husband, but I couldn't ignore the truth anymore. I found financial documents, offshore accounts, secret transfers. I confronted him and he became aggressive. I was scared. I didn't know what he was capable of. My hands clenched into fists. I could hear her voice in my head, trembling, vulnerable, so damn convincing. But I had never touched her. Not once. She was lying, and she had set me up. I forced myself to look at her, sitting across the room in the front row. She had perfected the role of the heartbroken wife. Hands clasped, shoulders trembling, the occasional dab of a tissue to her eye. But I knew better. I had seen the smirk. "Do you have anything to say, Mr. Carter?" Reynolds asked, feigning patience. My lawyer, Jackson Boyd, placed a firm hand on my arm. "Don't say a word, Nick. We'll fight this." But I barely heard him. My mind was spinning, rewinding, trying to pinpoint the moment I lost control of my own life. Then it hit me. Started 6 months ago. It was the night of Emily's company gala. She worked in high-end real estate, rubbing elbows with wealthy investors, developers, and corporate sharks. I had never fit into that world, but I showed up anyway, smiling through the endless conversations about capital gains and market trends. That's when I met him. William Will Donovan, a real estate mogul with a net worth that made mine look laughable. He was tall, effortlessly charming, and had that aura of power that made people lean in when he spoke. Emily introduced us, her hand resting a little too long on his arm. "Nick, this is Will. He's been helping me with some big investment deals," she said, her voice sweet as honey. Will gave me a firm handshake and a perfectly measured smile. "I've heard a lot about you. Wish I could say the same," I replied, unable to shake the unease settling in my gut. That night, Emily was different. She clung to my arm in front of others, but when no one was looking, she pulled away. Her laughter was too bright, her glances at Will too quick. I ignored it. I told myself it was nothing. I was a fool. A month later, strange things started happening. First, an email from my bank flagged an attempted wire transfer of $250,000 from one of my corporate accounts. It had been caught before it went through, but the request had come from my login credentials. I changed all my passwords and wrote it off as a cyber attack. Then, minor discrepancies in my firm's books, tiny amounts shifted around, barely noticeable. My CFO assured me it was just accounting errors, but they added up. Still, I convinced myself it was paranoia. Then Emily started acting differently. She became more attentive, more affectionate. She'd bring me coffee in the mornings, leave little notes on my desk. She made time for me, something she hadn't done in years. I should have known then. It wasn't love. It was distraction. 2 months before my arrest, I got home late from a meeting and found Emily on the phone in her office. The door was cracked open, just enough for me to hear. "I don't care what he thinks. As long as everything is in his name, he's the one who takes the fall." My breath caught in my throat. She laughed soft, knowing. "Yes, I'll handle him. He trusts me. He won't see it coming." I backed away, bile rising in my throat. I should have confronted her then. Should have done something. Instead, I did nothing. And now here I was, framed, doomed, betrayed. And Emily was getting away with it. Back in the interrogation room, Reynolds leaned in. "Look, Carter, we both know you're not walking out of this clean. But maybe, just maybe, you help us and we cut you a deal." I exhaled slowly, my mind clearing for the first time in weeks. I looked at Emily again, at the way she held herself. Composed. Secure. She thought she had won. She thought I would roll over. But she didn't know one thing. I wasn't going to fight to prove my innocence. I was going to fight to destroy her. Prison is a classroom. You either learn fast or you become the lesson. I learned quickly. The first week behind bars, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Emily in that courtroom. Delicate, composed, playing the role of the grieving wife. The whole world believed her. She had framed me so perfectly, so cleanly, that even I had moments where I questioned myself. But the evidence? That was undeniable. Forged signatures, offshore accounts, witness statements, all leading to one conclusion. Nicholas Carter was guilty. No one questioned how a man who had spent years obsessing over financial transparency suddenly became the mastermind behind a multimillion-dollar fraud scheme. No one looked past Emily's crocodile tears long enough to wonder if maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the victim. No one but me. And now, I was stuck in a concrete box while she enjoyed the fortune she had stolen from me. But that was going to change. The first break came on my 10th night in lockup. I had just finished my third fight, this time with a guy named Lenny who didn't appreciate me sitting at the wrong table. My lip was split, my knuckles swollen, but I walked back to my bunk without a sound. Weakness was blood in the water. That's when he approached me. A tall, wiry man with cold, calculating eyes. Unlike the other prisoners, he didn't move with aggression. He moved with purpose. "You're Carter," he said, taking the spot across from me. I didn't answer, just wiped the blood off my mouth. He smirked. "Smart man. I'm Devin Cross. Heard about your case." That got my attention. Devin Cross. The name was familiar. Whispers in the finance world, rumors in high-profile criminal circles. A former hedge fund manager who had gotten too powerful, too greedy. When the feds finally took him down, they barely scratched the surface of what he had actually done. And now he was sitting across from me. "You got screwed," Devin continued, his voice low. "Your wife set you up. Good job, too. Almost makes me respect her." I clenched my jaw. "What do you want?" He chuckled. "That's the wrong question. What you should be asking is, what do you need?" I didn't answer, but I didn't need to. He already knew. "You want revenge," Devin said, leaning in. "And lucky for you, I happen to have some friends who specialize in that sort of thing." For the next 3 weeks, I listened. Devin taught me everything. How to move money through shell corporations. How to scrub digital footprints. How to make someone disappear not physically but financially. Identity, credit history, bank accounts, gone like they never existed. He was teaching me the art of destruction. And I soaked in every lesson. Because I wasn't just going to take revenge. I was going to burn Emily's world to the ground. The moment of truth came 2 months into my sentence. Devin had given me a name, Eric Vance, a corrupt investment broker who owed Devin a favor. A man who had the kind of connections that could rewrite a person's financial history. Getting in touch with him was the tricky part. But then, fate handed me an opportunity. One morning, a guard slipped a letter under my cell door. No name, no return address. Just a single line written on a folded piece of paper. "You should have been smarter." I knew that handwriting. Emily, my wife, the woman who had destroyed my life, had taken the time to write me a personal note. To rub salt in the wound. It was a mistake. Because it meant I now had a way to get to her. The return address on the envelope wasn't hers, of course. It was from her lawyer's office. But that was enough. I knew exactly how that firm handled offshore trusts. And thanks to Devin, I knew exactly how to bleed them dry. That night I made my move. I wrote a letter, a desperate plea, to Emily's lawyer, claiming I had information that could help Emily in her next legal battle. Something only she would understand. I made sure it was just tempting enough to get it forwarded to her. And the moment she responded, Eric Vance would be waiting to track her digital movements, her secret accounts, the places she thought she had hidden her stolen wealth. Emily thought she had won. She thought she had erased me. She had no idea I was about to become her worst nightmare. Emily always thought she was the smartest person in the room. That's why she made a mistake. When my letter reached her lawyer's office, I expected hesitation, maybe even outright rejection. But Emily, she couldn't resist. The idea that I might know something she didn't, it would eat away at her. And just like I planned, she took the bait. She responded. The moment she did, Eric Vance was watching. By the time her email hit my fake account, Eric had already done his work. In a matter of seconds, he traced her IP, decrypted her VPN, and cracked open the first layer of her hidden finances. Emily thought she was careful, but she wasn't careful enough. I read her reply, a single cautious sentence. "What do you think you know?" It didn't matter. The game had already started. For weeks, Emily had been untouchable. She moved into a luxury penthouse overlooking the city skyline, bought a new car, and started spending my stolen fortune like she had earned it. The media painted her as the tragic widow of a white-collar criminal. She wasn't just surviving, She was thriving. She believed she had gotten away with it. But then the cracks started to show. The first hit was subtle. A small, unexplained withdrawal from one of her offshore accounts. Nothing big, just a test. Something that would make her nervous. And it did. I imagined the moment she logged in to check her balance, expecting to see millions sitting comfortably, only to find something missing. Just enough to make her paranoid. Just enough to make her panic. I knew her too well. She would start calling people, demanding answers. And the moment she did, she'd realize there was no one to blame, because I wasn't stealing her money. I was erasing it. The next hit came 2 days later. Emily had purchased an extravagant diamond necklace at a boutique in New York, a piece so rare and expensive that it required specialized insurance. I made sure that insurance was revoked. When she returned to the boutique to pick up her purchase, they politely informed her that her coverage was mysteriously invalid.
No explanación.
No one to yell at, just confusion, a tiny inconvenience. But Emily hated inconvenience. And that was the point. She didn't know it yet, but I was tightening the noose. The real damage came the following week. Emily's world ran on money, her stolen fortune, her secret accounts, the offshore trusts she had hidden behind fake corporations. So I took them away. One by one, her accounts started vanishing. First, a $2 million fund in the Cayman Islands was frozen for irregular activity. Then, an anonymous tip led the IRS to flag one of her businesses for audit. By the time her lawyer called her, she was already in full-blown meltdown mode. I pictured her sitting in her penthouse, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her phone as she scrolled through account after account, watching her wealth disappear, frantically dialing, demanding answers. But no one could help her, because there was no one to chase.
No thief. No hacker.
Nothing but a series of unfortunate events that all seemed to be happening. At the same time, Emily was trapped in a nightmare she didn't even understand yet. And I was just getting started. Emily Carter was unraveling. I could see it in the way her transactions became erratic. Random withdrawals, desperate attempts to move money between accounts that were suddenly inaccessible. She thought she was playing a chess game. She didn't realize I had already put her in checkmate. But before I finished her, I wanted her to suffer. I wanted her to feel what I felt when she watched me get sentenced to 25 years. I wanted her to lose everything. And tonight was the night I pulled the final string. Emily's paranoia reached a breaking point when she received a legal notice from a private investigator named Eric Vance, an investigator she had never hired. We regret to inform you that our findings regarding Nicholas Carter's case have led to a pending litigation. You are required to appear for questioning. It was a lie, of course. But Emily didn't know that. She called her lawyer immediately, her voice shaking. What the hell is this? Her lawyer sighed. Emily, we have a bigger problem. Silence. Then, what do you mean, a bigger problem? The lawyer hesitated. It's your trust accounts. There's been an issue. Emily's stomach twisted. What issue? Her lawyer took a breath. They're gone. All of them. Emily had spent years carefully hiding the money she stole from me. Shell companies, offshore accounts, untraceable transfers. She thought she had covered every trail. But in the past 3 weeks, every account under her name, every secret trust, every offshore deposit, had been systematically erased. And the best part? I didn't even take the money. I just made it disappear. Through a series of digital maneuvers, coordinated by Eric Vance's connections, Emily's assets had been flagged for fraudulent activity. Banks froze the accounts. Auditors got involved. And once the government smelled fraud, it was over. Everything she thought she could run away with was now locked away, or simply gone. Emily Carter was now broke. Her secret affair? Not so secret anymore. But I wasn't done. Oh no. The final twist was yet to come. Because while Emily was busy frantically calling every financial contact she had, another storm was brewing. See, her boyfriend, William Donovan, the real estate mogul she had been cheating on me with, wasn't exactly loyal. Not to her. And especially not when his name started popping up in the government's fraud investigation. One well-placed anonymous tip to the SEC, And suddenly William found himself under scrutiny for financial crimes. When Emily went to his penthouse that night, probably hoping for reassurance or maybe even money, she found something else instead. She found William's wife and his lawyers. "Emily," his wife said, her voice dripping with venom, "you should sit down." And that's when Emily realized. She hadn't just lost her money. She had lost her backup plan. William had cut her loose. She was completely alone. And then, the knock on the door. Emily staggered back to her penthouse, one of the few assets she still had left. She barely had time to process everything before the knock came. Hard, loud, authoritative. She froze. Then, slowly, she opened the door. 2 federal agents stood there, badges glinting in the dim light. "Emily Carter?" one of them asked. Her hands shook. "Yes. You're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice." The color drained from her face. No, there's been a mistake." They weren't listening. The cuffs clicked around her wrists, and as they hauled her away, I finally smiled for the first time in months. Because Emily Carter was about to experience the prison sentence she had planned for me. But mine was almost over. 1 year later, I stepped out of the prison gates, breathing in the cold morning air. Free. The sky was the same dull gray it had been the day I was sentenced, but everything was different now. I had won. Emily Carter was sitting in a 6x8 cell, awaiting trial for fraud, conspiracy, perjury, and obstruction of justice. Her downfall had been swift and merciless. The feds tore through her finances like vultures, uncovering a mountain of forged documents and hidden transactions. Every account she touched was linked back to fraudulent activity. Her lover, William Donovan, took a deal and testified against her. Her lawyer abandoned her. Her friends disappeared overnight. And now, Emily Carter, the woman who framed me, who stole everything, was rotting in the same prison she sent me to. Perfect. But I wasn't done yet. Emily thought she had lost everything. She was wrong. There was one last thing she still had. Hope. She thought she could beat the charges. That she'd find a way out. That somehow she'd recover. So I took that too. That morning, she received a letter in her cell. From me. It was simple. One sentence. "You should have been smarter." The same words she had sent me in prison. And the moment she read them, the guards came for her. Her trial had been expedited. A judge was waiting. The prosecution had one final piece of evidence. A digital paper trail leading back to a mysterious offshore account linked to her name. An account that wasn't hers. An account I created. An account that made it look like Emily had been stealing from herself. Her own lawyer called it inexplicable. The judge? He called it irrefutable. And then the sentence came down. Life in prison. No parole. Emily Carter was erased. Just like she tried to do to me. I walked away from the prison gates with nothing. No money. No house. No company. And yet I had everything. Because I was free. Emily? She would never be free again. And that was worth every second behind bars. Checkmate. Emily.